Selamat datang ke ASM Podcast yang dibawakan khas oleh Akademi Sains Malaysia. Siri podcast ini merupakan platform perkongsian topik-topik berkaitan sains, teknologi, inovasi dan ekonomi STIE secara santai dan mudah difahami. Setiap episod akan menampilkan jaringan pakar ASM yang akan berkongsi pengalaman dan pendapat mereka tentang STIE seiring dengan etos ASM. Budayakan sains, raikan teknologi, cetuskan inovasi.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mazlan Othman. I am a senior fellow of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia, and I chair the ASM Art Science Initiative of the Academy. More into that, well, in another podcast, maybe. But why are we here? So we are here actually to launch this book called Cosmic Connections Langkawi, which was commissioned to the Academy by LADA, the Langkawi Development Authority. And in coming up with a book to demonstrate what the Langkawi National Observatory has in terms of its pictures, I requested from LADA that I do not just have a I asked them that we shouldn't go for just the usual coffee table book format, which is just to put pretty pictures. And like as usual, I said, I want them to learn a little science. But of course, science is difficult, and I thought that to soften that blow of the science, that I would interlace all that information by art and poetry, which is why this book, actually, I've opened at the right page. It's got the beautiful photos taken by the observatory, and here is this poem happens to be Fortune. Okay, so, but who are my co-authors? My co-authors are Jailani Abu Hassan and Muhammad Haji Saleh. I'm going to introduce every one of my team in a minute, but that's why we are in Ambong. But you may ask, I could take this anywhere, so why am I taking it to Ambong? That's because if you just look at Ambong, to me this is the essence of everything that Langkawi has to offer. The sun, you see the beautiful sunset, you know, the sea, there's the sea, mountain, there's Machincang. Jungle, you see it around you. And for me, of course, the sky. And so Ambong cannot be more perfect than what I'm hoping for. So that's why we are in Ambong. So now, while I was, traveling, when you're traveling, you tend to think a little bit more, not so rushed. And I was thinking to myself that I will have these 4 intellectual giants, because later I'll tell you, okay, maybe I'll tell you now. So in launching this book, I did not want the presentation to be mundane, the usual, same old. Again, I went to LADA and Ambong and said that, okay, already this is terrific. We have art and poetry, but I would then like to present it, like a drama. And they agreed. And so if you have to stage a drama, I went to my good friend Johan Jalan. And Johan Jalan, he was very happy, very pleased, but he made a lot of trouble for me because he said, art dengan poetry je tak cukup, not enough. We must include dance and music. So I've got music. And so with great trepidation, I went to Ramli and said, Ramli, could you help Johan Jalan and I put this together? But yeah, so that's why I've got these people here. But of course, I was also thinking that in looking at the creative industry, that it would not be complete if we didn't talk about the film industry in Malaysia. Because I think as part of Johan Jalan will tell you that film industry, one of the biggest sectors of the creative industry. That's why I invited Lina. Lina Tan is the founder of an MD right now of Red Communications. She is a producer and writer. And I like this. One of her early TV productions was 3R, targeting female audience, respect, relax, and respond. Because before that, when the shows for women is about art, flower arrangement, cooking, and all that. So she wanted to do something different. And she sits on the board of Finas, and I like that, where she used to sit on the board of Finas. Renowned Malaysian contemporary artist Jailani Abu Hassan. Say hi, Jai.
Hi, Jai.
Yeah.
Hi.
Jai is a pivotal figure in the visual art community. His process painting explores Malaysian identity and culture, blending text and images, referencing Malay cosmology and global culture. He was educated in UiTM and also in London and New York. His works are held in prestigious collections globally, including the National Gallery of Victoria in Australia. What this means is I cannot afford to buy Jai's paintings anymore.
Can give you free. Can give you one free.
If all of you say it one time, maybe jadilah. Then Muhammad Haji Saleh, Malaysia's National Laureate, is a distinguished scholar and poet, educated in Malaysia, England, and the US. And he has significantly influenced Malay literature. So Muhammad's extensive literary contributions include 15 poetry collections, now he has one more, and 12 books of, I like this, criticism, translated into 12 languages. So he has many awards and accolades. The next person is Ramli Ibrahim. Ramli Ibrahim is an accomplished ballet, modern and Indian classical dance. He is an accomplished ballet, modern and classical Indian classical dancer who has performed internationally for 4 decades. That doesn't mean that he looks like the 4 decades. Since his return to Malaysia, he has been instrumental in transforming the Malaysian dance scene by boldly charting new paths. Again, with the scientists, we are boldly go to where no one has been before, as in Star Trek. So to Ramli, dance is a celebration and the liberation of the body, mind, and soul. I love this. So he'll tell us a little bit about that. Then we have Johan Jalan. Johan Jalan was a stage actor, director, and playwright. He has written a book, Jejak Seni, dari pentas bangsawan ke media prima berhad, to chronicle his 5-decade involvement in the world of the arts and culture. He is also a national journalism laureate. So, all these laureates, now you know why I'm so intimidated sometimes. Now, he says for some years, he was chairman of a media company. Tapi ada baca sikit tadi kan, I think you can guess what that media company is. So you have 5 really terrific, awesome thinkers, and I'm hoping to tap their brains. That's why we are talking today. So as I said, we will be very informal, and I will ask you questions to this group. So don't worry, not that many questions.
There's no difficult questions.
No difficult questions. Okay. Now, when I invited some of you, I said to discuss the future of the creative industry. Because remember, this is part of the foresight work that Johan Jalan and I did for the Academy of Sciences Malaysia. So rather than look back to see who was in the wrong, what went wrong, it's futile, So we will now look into the future. But there is only one point that I think we have to say, why is it that, how do we move forward from there? Because in any industry at all, it must start with a policy. And I'm sure not many of you know that we have a Dasar Kreatif Industri Negara. Okay, show of hands, siapa pernah dengar? Good on you. But when I went around, when I came back in 2014, went around to both corporate and individual people in the industry, if they knew at all, they said, who cares? Because it didn't mean anything to them. So my first question then is, so we had that creative, Dasar Creative Industry. What did it mean, if it meant something to you? And maybe you could even explain why it didn't mean anything to you, or even when you talk about why it failed. So this is the only question yang adalah sedikit looking at the past to say why it failed. Because in looking at the future, we have to know what the past was. Okay, ladies first. Lina, tell us about what you thought of it's called Dasar Creative, Dasar Industri Kreatif Negara.
Well, firstly, I'm very honored to be here with a very esteemed panel. I'm a bit different because my background is advertising and TV and films, because I produced TV and films for the last 25 years. The last for a company, corporate communications, and it's different because it encompasses. I do documentaries, I do scripted shows, I do all kinds of stuff. So I guess in a way, television and film encompasses everything. I mean, it encompasses good writing. We need good scripts. It also encompasses good visuals, because we have to have beautiful visuals. But we actually don't have enough interaction with the whole creative. So if you ask me what's Dasar, I mean, honestly, I don't know, because I didn't know about it. And for the last 30 years, just doing productions and running, I don't think anybody in the film and television industry actually knows very much about it, other than the existence of Finas and Lembaga Censorship, because those two are the bane of our lives.
Not the boon, huh?
No.
So what this means is that you have carried on all these years without having to know about the Dasar Industri Kreatif Negara, right?
It doesn't affect us. It doesn't affect the industry. I think that will, for media prima, for Antan,
That's an irony, isn't it?
It doesn't affect us as an industry, because the work that we do,
Exactly.
firstly, I mean, it's a business, but it's a creative business. Whatever help we get from the government, it's really to do with Finas, which is a regulatory body that regulates our licenses, that gives us grants. Well, not everybody gets grants. In fact, very few people get grants. For the many years, we didn't even know who got grants, but we know people got grants.
Yeah. Okay, Prof. Muhammad.
Yes. I started writing about 40 years ago.
Yes.
So all these are very new. And being a poet, I write in my own hole. Alone, thinking, finding images, finding ideas for the poem. So I was quite with myself alone. And that is the idea of a writer. In those days, that you should be true to yourself, you should find your own language and give it out to the readership. That was what I was doing for a long, long time. Even as a lecturer and a poet, I was closer to the poet, and I enjoyed being myself. Nowhere else does one get that type of freedom. And the freedom in Malaysia is not often the thing that you want. The shape of the freedom is not something that you want and you care for. I am looking for this flow of ideas, flow of words, and flow of, the soul, so that it can reach a bigger audience and a meaningful one. That was important for me. And the idea that there was one body helping me to pay for my living.
Electricity bill.
Electricity bill doesn't happen at all. I was quite, the ideal writer that
The loner.
doesn't depend on anybody else. And when the years got to be more congested than the idea of the Dasar Creative Negara. How do I tie with the Dasar economy? I'm a loner, and I don't get anything out of the other side. So I push on and write what I think is right, what I think I need to say, and not think so much of this Dasar. Neither the business, and the business isn't that good. I write for Dewan Bahasa, I write for the university presses, and we get pressed. The joke is that even now, Dewan Bahasa publishes 300 copies for a title by a sastrawan negara. Jadi apa? So what can you say? And sometimes I get a royalty of 27 ringgit 11 cents.
Yes. Okay, Mark.
So I'm lucky I have a pay outside. But for those who don't have any, it cannot. So, the thing about poetry and literature is that it is a thinking field. And people don't like thinking people, especially the government. Yeah? So we go on our own path. And I've got a few books, about 15 books. And if I'm not boasting, I have almost 100 books in all. But then it's about 300 ringgit a year for royalty. So for me, right? Yes. But so this idea of industry, creative industry, is a little distant to me. Okay. But if you want to continue with it, for literature especially, you must make literature a serious subject. Now it is little part of the
optional.
Optional part of the bahasa. Komsas. So it's little one. And see, Japan doesn't do that, doesn't push literature to the side. Neither Russia, neither France, neither Canada, neither Japan, because they think literature is an expression of the soul and very important. In Malaysian literature, you find everything in it, from ethno-medical discoveries to the engineering of boats to laugh making. Ada manuscript Brahi, yes, I'm seeing my French shaking it here. And of course, falling in love through the pantuns. Whatever you say about traditional Malaysian literature, the pantuns is very important. From the time you like a girl or a girl likes a boy, it can be recorded in your words, in your gentle emotions, in your meaning selves. And then the second stage, and the third stage, and then the final stage. And I told my students, if you don't know pantun, you won't be able to get married. That's the only one time when they ran to the library as fast as they can.
Okay, Mat. I move on to Tan Sri Johan. So, Tan Sri Johan, you can see that a person, somebody like Prof Muhammad, just doesn't have to care about the creative industry, the policy. And when we are writing policies, we have to keep that in mind, that there are people like them who actually don't care. But still, I think under that policy, we have an obligation and responsibility to see how we might be able to promote them. But yeah, I know you have lots of views, Tan Sri, on the Dasar Kreatif Industri Negara. Please share them with us.
I am actually very envious of my professor. I wish I could do that over the years.
I'm envious of you too. Yeah.
We are envious of each other, but the very fact that you have that kind of freedom, you can write 100 books, and of course, the sad thing is that you get 300
if he's lucky.
royalty. Well, that is another issue. But the point here is, I believe that we need a Dasar Industri Kreatif Negara.
Yeah.
But the problem is, we simply have too many Dasar. People don't care anymore about Dasar.
Sure.
If the Dasar is really a guiding light to bring, say, the industry to a different level, to the next level, then people would understand. But as you have pointed out, there is nobody seems to know what the Dasar is. It has been around for some time. But the basic issue here is the fact that I think we should have a plan for the future. We must have an industry that the ecosystem is such that basically it is protected. Yeah? As it is now, it's almost like, individually everybody is working in their own cells, in their own cocoon, and nobody seems to know what the others are doing. And the whole issue about the creative content industry, which should be one of the major factors in the economic well-being of this country, but largely ignored by probably the government. And the policy that we have is not helping at all. We do not even have a proper plan for the future. Where do we go from here? The tenacious, hardworking, creative people that have been in this business for years and years, and always remember that they have contributed to society in such a way that basically they are like a candle burning themselves, And how does the government come into picture? We look at Korea, for instance, South Korea. I always give an example of what is happening in Korea. Nobody bothers about Korea at one point. Japan was leading in anime, in creative industry, and suddenly Korea became a force to be reckoned with. And today, Korea is showing the world the scent of the Korean culture. So basically, how did that happen? So we should ask ourselves, and frankly, as I think a lot of people were saying, they don't give a damn about any Dasar anymore. Because Dasar can be misleading. It all depends on who is at the helm of a ministry, and probably they don't even understand themselves what the Dasar is. But the most important thing is basically, in order for Malaysia to be a nation that is respected, and not only in creating job opportunities and talking about the economic side of things, economic growth, and changing the total skyline. But the most important thing is the creative expression of the people. That has been marginalized. And as you all know, that religiosity is rearing its ugly head. There is a lot of fundamental thinking that is that believe that everything that the artists are doing are basically haram, is against religion and things like that. So that adds to the problem. So this industry has thousands of problems, and it needs to be solved. And I think we can't solve this problem unless we have the political will to do so. And the rate things are going, I think the government have all the priorities wrong.
But if it's political will, it means that we must have a kind of policy, a Dasar. So I think in the end, while people have been ignoring the Dasar, or even if you couldn't care less about it, I think later I'll ask what the government, the way we move in the future. So unlike Muhammad, who will stay by himself, he's inspired. But Ramli, who is a dancer, needs to be admired, adored, by as large a public as possible. So, how would the Dasar, help you?
Well, I'm a bit confused because I'm not familiar with Dasar Creativity.
Yes, right, there you go.
But I am working on the National Cultural Policy, which is Dasar Kebudayaan Kebangsaan, which is different.
Kebudayaan, which is different.
So I think
Yes,
creativity is a
Right,
much more
right.
general
Right,
area
right,
because
right.
everything
Yes,
is creative. Related to creativity.
Yes.
I really think that cooking is related to creativity,
Yeah.
or I think not just dance and art and painting, but everything in terms of I really want to have a creative administrator working with me. So I think that creativity is a general thing. But what happened is that as what all the great giants are saying, that the professional people, the truly professional people, not the one that is associated with government institutions, are charting their own path because there's a great disconnect between, actually, even in dance, there's a great disconnect between the practitioner, and I won't say practitioner, but the artist, the scholar that is dealing with arts like Jai, and also the bureaucrat. So when you do the Dasar, the bureaucrat, the arts bureaucrat, will ask the scholars to do it, and the scholars, willy-nilly, never really engage with the practical people. Because I've sat on the decan or the National Cultural Policy and said that how come a lot of us are not really truly asked with regards to the data that is arrived at the National Cultural Policy, for instance. So there is a great disconnect, and artists, the professional artists, are really charting their own path regardless. And there is a bubble of creativity within the different sections of the community, like what Lina was saying. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a very, very difficult world, and I'm anxious for my dancers, the young generation, and how they are going to continue. As I said, as you had said, Mazlan, that the leadership must understand that the Dasar must direct where that can be, and that's why certainly I can only talk about arts and culture which need very passionate people. You cannot put a bureaucrat who has no passion for the arts and culture to be in charge. And I really think that this is one of the great problems, that the great leadership has got to then delegate and find other leaders or specialists with integrity dealing with the other subsequent areas, specific specialists of culture. Talk about handicraft, dance, sculpture, music, literature, and all that thing. We need then to have that specialist, and that's why I felt that a strong arts council might be, for the time being, a better idea for arts and culture.
I'm going to ask that as the next question. Now, the Jai is that artist with his, I call it joyful chaos in his studio. My God, so Jai, again, how would Dasar Kreatif Negara help you, or do you care at all?
Yeah. Well, after listening to all these giants, as much as I want to be like Prof. Mama Haji Saleh, to be autonomous and independent, but I'm wearing two hats here. I'm also a teacher. I'm involved with the education.
Right.
And I'm also a professional artist on my own professional practice. And the irony was that you are preaching something that not really what you teach, you're practicing because of the policy. Not only because of the policy, because of the pedagogic system of education. For instance, what I taught my student in the studio or at school, in the university, is contrary to what I was practicing as a professional industrial player.
Give you an example.
For instance, because it's quite organic. For instance, a student who got A in my class, he can't make it outside for some reason. His painting cannot sell. Yeah? So the student who got B or fail in the class, he's going to become a successful artist. So you see the ambiguity between that, between the pedagogic system of teaching art and the industrial practice of art making. So I have to change my head every now and then. But the advantage was that you kind of managed to trace, not only to trace, to identify what was it that really went wrong. So maybe I have my own analysis. It would be very much involved with come back to the policy, very much involved with the, how do I put this? I was in agreement with Ramli, the policymaker and the practitioner. Those two is very much disconnected. Education system and the industrial doesn't match. What the industrial demand, what their own, how do you call it? Their own mold. And the university have their own purpose. They said they're teaching the student to do and the industry said, no, you're not follow our demand. So there's a mismatching part so my student leave the university having this ideal notion of becoming a great artist. They were taught to be a great artist. But actually in the industry, they don't need a great artist. They need a good producer. So that put them on the conveyor belt of manufacturer. So the pressure of producing is different from what you have in the industry and what you have during your education, your training as an artist. So artist education and industrial, for some reason, disengage, detach. And we go back to Ramdi, we go back to what Muhammad was saying. So I don't know, I cannot give a solution, but I can see the root of the issue here. The mismatching of the need between the education system. If you ask me what is the definition of artistic success, for instance, I would base on my professional practice, definitely. Not my degree, or not my master, or not my... If you look at doctor or lawyer or dentist, we go to the clinic, you see all the diploma and degree on the wall. But you can't do that with artists. Artists don't have that, but it's very successful. So it's this kind of I don't know, organic or maybe ambiguous way of assessing success.
Talking about assessing, if you're in the university, in which you are hard pressed to come up with publications. And so if you're going for promotion, you're looking at H index.
The scopers and all that.
So how do we assess, evaluate the performance of somebody like you? So that goes back to what happens in the educational institution.
I was not even promoted. Sorry, this is recorded. But I was not even promoted in the university because for some reason, you were viewed differently because you're so active outside in the industry. This thing that you were cari makan luar, something like that, and they failed to connect between the university and the industry. That's a major problem. So you're not contributing to the university. You're contributing to the industry. That's a view. That's a common view, which is wrong.
Okay. The other thing, I just want to ask one more question, which is general to all of you. So we're talking about the Dasar Kreatif Industri Negara, and then you have the National Cultural Policy, which is maybe beyond, because we're just talking about the creative industry here. Now, when we were doing this study, one of the things that came up all the time is the fact that we don't have a National Arts Council. You see, we scientists are lucky we have a National Science Council, which is chaired by the Prime Minister. We have a National Innovation Council, all kinds of councils. And they're normally, Innovation Council. So, chaired by the Prime Minister. So when the Prime Minister chairs these councils, it makes a difference. for us, not only that it is not chaired by the Prime Minister, where I'm like, oh, it's on and off kind of thing, you know, on. Then the next time I hear it's off, and why it is on, why it's off. So my question to you is, would it help if we actually had a National Art Council? Because scientists, we need the National Science Council, just so that we all know, agree with each other how we move forward. But okay, let me start by Tan Sri Johan. Would we be served better if we had a National Art Council?
I think it would make a lot of difference. But would there be an art council? Would there be one? Would the government come out with this idea, or probably the pressure from the practitioners? We insisted that there must be a National Art Council. Would that happen? See, and my biggest worry is that I think the leadership is bogged down with all issues pertaining to politics and economy. So basically, that is one area that has not really been given some serious attention, or given any attention at all. You must remember when the new government came out, that was in November, December last year. They have this Ministry of Tourism. The word kebudayaan was missing. In fact, I wrote an open letter about that. So basically, in Indonesia, you have Kementerian Pendidikan dan Kebudayaan. It proves the importance of kebudayaan. Now, people have the impression that kebudayaan is just about dancing, tarian, menari. Then you see people performing ketoprak, whatever. It's more than that. Kebudayaan is more than that. So I think, in line with this idea of Madani, how do we define Madani? Well, it depends. We all have our own interpretation of Madani. And of course, the Prime Minister has his own way of looking at Madani. But the point here is, I think it is it is important for him to understand that we have to move this country beyond those economic numbers, beyond the political noises that we have been hearing all along. So arts and culture is critical for this country, or else we'll just be, Indonesia membina negara bangsa first, then they talk about economics. But we probably believe that kita nak membangun ekonomi dulu, and eventually we do not have that kind of negara bangsa that we envision. So that's the difference between Indonesia and us. Of course, for the better or for worse. But the point here is, I think the most important thing is we have to have a cultural policy. Then we can talk about Dasar Industri Kreatif Negara. First thing first.
Yes, yeah. Lina, you sit on the board of Finas. You said, okay, doesn't matter. But then, would something like you might have thought on, if we had an arts council, can it, help Finas do better in terms of reaching more people instead of just a handful of people?
Yeah, for sure, Finas is the regulatory body of the film and TV industry. And the issue we have is that Finas run by a bunch of bureaucrats. They are paper pushers. Nobody there understands film. And then, of course, there's the other issue. Everybody thinks Finas is also censorship board, which they're not. Censorship is under the Bangka Bangsa. So you have two very conflicting. Finas gives you money to make a film. So you go and make your film. And you go and then you win at Cannes, you win at whatever, all the film festivals. Then you come to Malaysia and you get censored. But that's not Finas' job. That is the Bangka Bangsa. And then you have Finas that says, okay, we got FIMI. What's FIMI? Film in Malaysia incentive. It's an incentive. They give you 30% if you film in Malaysia, anything from Survivor to anything that comes to Malaysia, even if it's filmed locally, above a certain amount, you get 30% rebate. Great, fantastic. But now they even want censorship board because they won't give you the money unless you clear censorship board, which doesn't make sense.
Yes. Again.
Honestly, all these policies doesn't make sense only because they get scared. They get more and more scared of things like, maybe somebody is like taking money and then we don't see it. But there are ways, those things are what Finas needs to do. Check and balance to make sure the right people get the right money, and those things quite easy to do if you can look at, And yet, so because of the past mistakes, I mean, there's been a lot of mistakes. I sat on the board twice, once in 2004, once and now recently in the last 2 years, and I could see the difference. In 2004, there was hardly any transparency, but now, we see a lot more transparency. But yet, if it's government policy, I agree. There's no one government policy, and then the change of political political will. When I sat on the board, there were 2 prime ministers, two ministers of two culture, 2 communication ministers, 2 KSUs. So within 2 years, we had two. How are we going to make any change in that?
Yeah.
And then everybody got confused. How come you are on the board? How come all of you are producers? We had 6 producers on the board, appointed by the minister, and we got questioned like, why? Because new government came in and like, yes, why are you guys on the board? You guys are all practitioners. You guys shouldn't be on the board. But if there's nobody, then the argument is that if there's no practitioners on the board, which happened many years ago, right? People who are no practitioners sit on the board, academicians, or then how are you going to look at this industry properly? Even architects, everybody has, like you say, science. You need to be an actual person practicing in the industry to be able to then advise and it's like policies that some policies don't make sense to people who are. And if you say you guys cannot, and we'll just we will listen to the Persatuan. Persatuan FDAM has a president that just passed away. They haven't changed for the last 10, 20 years, and his policies are outdated. We have moved so much in media now that policies, again, and then cultural, there's so much issues. Same thing with the education, right? Which I said about it is true, because I sit on the advisory for tailors and all these. All these students, they don't want to be filmmakers, they want to be YouTube stars. All of them want to be YouTube stars.
We're
Even
teaching a lot of stuff. Yeah.
So if they were to do internship, they'd rather go and intern with all these YouTubers rather than actual practitioners, because it's too hard. Susah nak buat. It's too difficult. So
it's mismatching.
There's so much mismatching. Policies, great if there's one coming up from the top. The Prime Minister says like this, every ikut je. Tapi Prime Minister pun tukar. So we had that problem that time because of that. So we were all also like, we're just not political. We just wanted to change the industry.
Ramli, would a National Arts Council help you?
Definitely, but in one aspect, I feel that what Johan was saying, that first of all, the government has to recognize that arts and culture and the social science are important in nation building. And not just the money, not just the profit and cents. And they have to recognize the intangible heritages of the nation and things like that. But in terms of KKMM and creative industries, there is a kind of now going out that means that the funding is confused. The funding will sometimes go to KKMM, then the funding is going to Motec, and then the funding going, So even if you do a national arts council, you must understand then where is that, because it is riddled with politics, petty politics, and we don't want that to happen. And I think one of the other aspect is the fact that, say for example, Lina, there in all the boards there's always Jakim or some Islamic center that is going to tell you cannot do this, you cannot, and they are another form of bureaucrats. These are another religious thuggery that is coming out to tell you what you should and should not do, regardless of whether you have Khan's award or whatever it is. And this is why, with the investment that you are doing, is incredibly kind of demoralizing. But for my area, for example, you find at the moment the funding is a major problem. And this is where I think an arts council with the specialists and the expertise in charge of each area of music, literature, handicraft, crafts and film and all that kind of thing, they are responsible to after 3 years, 4 years, they are responsible. Where is it going to? And I think that would be more of a responsibility instead of, say, my creative ventures in charge of everything from A to Z, and which, by that time everything's happening this month. And not only that, when everything is happening this month, all the funding has got to finish. You find that there's no theatres available, and like what Jai is happening, no one outside Kuala Lumpur is willing to spend more than 2,000 ringgit to buy a painting, because the painting sensibilities are not developed in Ipoh nor in Penang for all the students that are coming out into the professional world in UIT and as artists. They've saturated the market in Kuala Lumpur and not able to sell in Ipoh, because Ipoh doesn't have that kind of thing, So Ipoh does not have a really strong gallery or the engagement of the people with paintings or with dance for that matter, So I really think that these areas where the Arts Council with their expertise are able, with their funding, to say, okay, in 3 years' time, this is what we'll do to look at arts everywhere, decentralization of Malaysia, make sure that everyone goes, fix the arts and culture scene in Malaysia.
Jai, you are in the National Art Gallery board of what, trustees? So so would National Arts Council serve any purpose to you guys?
Yeah, okay. Give me a while. I have to say it very carefully.
Okay.
Well, not the problem. When the board of any body or organization, the selection of the board itself, for instance, National Art Gallery, they have a quota. They have to have more tech people inside there. They have to have the industrial people inside there. They have from
Treasury,
KSU. So we have maybe two artists. We're lucky. So the whole board have a different function and different purpose in the National Art Gallery itself, which is a normal practice. So when the issue comes out, or when the debate or the discussion comes out, we have a hard time making a decision because of the different view. Of course, people more worry about numbers. That's all. Budget and number, how much they're going to spend. Less about the value, the intrinsic value of the art, everything. Less about that. And people from the other department worrying about other things. So I think back to the question, who appoint, if there is going to be a council, who appoint this council? Are we going to vote democratically? Or are we going to be appointed by ministry? Depending on who's the ministry, who's in charge. Things like that. I think the biggest question, rather than,
whether it's by the minister. Selalunya by the minister.
Obviously, my appointment is signed by the minister.
But you know how I sometimes look at this? When you set up something like this, you would have one clause that says the council would consist of, and everybody has to agree to that. So if you see a council of 5 people yang compulsory, KSU, KSN or something like that, and Motek, then one artist, then we all should be protesting against that. It shouldn't happen. But so the where this should start is when we formulate what is the National Arts Council, under which ministry it is going to be.
Who's the
ownership? Sometimes it's legacy issue. Sometimes it's a legacy issue. It is stipulated that you have to have the KSN, the KSU, the Project representative.
And I don't think a legacy issue is necessarily cannot be undone.
Yes.
I've always undone a lot of things. So I think
also not inclusive. I think literature is pushed aside, while the performing arts and also lukisan dan lain-lain again, but not literature, because somehow people don't understand literature, and they cannot see how it is important to the country. But I don't know whether we should have Creative Arts Council. Should we have just Creative Culture Council for all the sections, all the artists, because let's think about this way. The arts are not only part of the lives of the people, but it's also the soul. And I'm in literature. I feel that we try a little harder every day to bring out the soul. And this is the missing part. Now, with the technology, everything is technology. Everything is technology. And where am I? I have no technology.
Yes, yeah.
And many young people too feel if you don't have technology, you're nothing. And in the curriculum, it's always technology.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm sure in the art too, and in literature, if you take literature in schools, you find yourself kind of unimportant, yeah, you're outside the group, and that's what happened.
And you teach PE.
You teach PE, yeah, and then nombor terakhir tak terpandang langsung, and this is sad. It doesn't happen
Yes.
in countries where they can see the value of all the different arts, including literature, and a country without a pride in its culture is no
Yes.
country. It's only a place where you make shoes. And,
You got to make
hats.
nice, beautiful, creative shoes.
Right,
You know.
that's true, yeah.
Mat, I'm going to make you even sadder because I foresee a time when I will be reading poetry and literature and books written by ChatGPT, don't know what version lah, yeah. And there'll come a time when and you listen to Sam Altman, you listen to Elon Musk, they all say this. There'll come a time when they'll be as creative, maybe even conscious, in the future, like us. So, Mat, what are you going to say about that?
What
Would you do? What would you do if from now on all the young people are going to be reading poetry created by Chat or whatever, any
Okay,
AI,
yeah.
Open AI,
Okay.
Open AI is
Okay.
beyond ChatGPT.
Okay. Yeah. For one, we do not have a policy on literature itself.
Yes.
Okay, good literature and what it means again, what it means to our history, what it means to our traditions and so on. I think that's very important. Yeah, I am from English literature. When I came back to Malay literature, I found a great garden, park of beautiful things,
Yes.
wonderful languages. I think Malay is one of the most beautiful languages in the world, no doubt about it. Second, we are talking about Kancil and Pak Kado,
Siluncai.
Siluncai, and so on. These are ways of commenting on the feudal lords, on the rajas of those days, who were not kind enough to the people in general. So even though it's about 1,000 years ago, there were ways of commenting on what is wrong. And then Tan Sri was talking about this Putri Gunung Ledang, wanting from the Sultan many things, and he was happy to be able to give all of them except one, the blood from his son, I think, a cup of blood from his son. This is a way of commenting on the Sultan of those days. They think they could have anything and do anything. He wanted to have the most beautiful princess of Malacca at that time, or around Malacca at that time. And the story went to turn around and give the power to the lady rather than to the state. Yeah. So, I'm going around and around because the whole thing is going round and round too. But let's go back to say that our culture is live it is very important. It has good values. It makes people creative too.
Yeah.
And for our children, now under the colonial power of technology,
Yeah,
what we call
okay.
what more than
Science and
colonial,
technology.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah, it is colonial.
Okay.
It doesn't come from inside. It comes from outside,
Yeah.
and it's also money.
Yes. Yeah.
And they buy us through money. So let's go back, yeah, and find our roots and make this the roots of our culture now, and we grow from there.
But Mat, although I asked you that question, I know I won't enjoy a poem written by AI compared to yours. But Ramli, you're going to be having holograms soon. You know, you'll have Michael Jackson on the stage just through holograms. And would that make dances, you know, a little irrelevant?
No, I really think that the rest of I think the more we have digital technologies
Yes.
and artificial intelligence, the more I think it's important we emphasize arts and culture,
Okay.
because arts and culture represent the humanity. But certainly I don't know what the future AI intelligence is going to be, but I can spot a ChatGPT kind of thing anytime,
Yes,
because they
yeah.
send it to me and I say, but this is terrible.
Yeah.
This is too clinical,
Yeah.
too sterilized, and it doesn't have the lovely flaws.
Yeah, yeah.
And I now I don't enjoy perfect bowls. I really enjoy flawed bowls.
How about
and for a
people?
long time, bowls.
Flawed people, I'm asking. How about people?
Well, I mean, I
Sorry,
think
yeah.
humanity with all its flaws
Mm.
is actually the most.
Yeah.
This is what we are about, and I think poets like Prof
Yeah.
and
Artists
Johan,
like Chai.
actually revel in being human. I mean, artists are that, and I really think that that area of culture and arts, the more we are more so-called advanced, the more we have to emphasize on.
How can we
Understood.
replace Ramli?
No,
He
I
cannot
didn't
be
say
AI'd in any way.
even the flaws. Okay, I think we are, a bit over. It doesn't matter. There are certain things come up consistently. Bureaucrats, I don't have to say anymore, and political will, lack of. And then I think there's mismatching of talent, mismatching of
Industry,
money.
academia.
Yeah, and academia and lots of those. So, but I'm not going to summarize what this intellectual giant survey said. We are going to have to continue with this discussion, yeah, Tan Sri? But of course, under the context of a creative industry. So, I'd like to thank all of you for being in this panel. Really very interesting thoughts and insights that we will bring, Tan Sri, Datuk Ramli, to when we advise the country about what the creative
Wonderful.
industry
Wonderful.
should be doing. Yeah, so again, thank you all.